Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you like my videos, please hit the like and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Today I'm going to be running through an oil change on my 80 series Landcruiser. Doing this video because I had a request. Now I will be using Penrite HPR diesel 1520, which is recommended for the Landcruiser. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it in one drum. I had to pick up two from the shop because they were sold out. Now you will be needing around 9.1 to 9.3 litres of oil to do this, so make sure that you have enough oil to do it. I also have my oil filter. I'm using a Sakura, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that one, C1112 filter, which is replaceable for a Z334 filter, which is currently on the car. Now you'll notice that I have a pen here. What I like to do, and you'll probably see it on my other oil filter when I take it off, is to write the date that I've done the oil change and the kilometers that I've done the oil change on the back of the oil filter here, so when you look in the engine bay you can glance real quick and see when you're due for your oil change. Now you'll probably notice that the date on there is older than what the record date on this video is. Due to everything that happened in 2020 in the world, my car kind of pretty much just sat for 6 months. I think I used 2 tanks of fuel in the whole year. I just didn't drive anywhere. It is recommended by Toyota that you change the oil every 5,000 kilometers and renew the oil filter every 10,000. So I normally, when I do the oil change the oil filter. Simple, easy way to do it. So about every 5,000 Ks or 6 to 12 months, I'll change my oil filter. Let's get stuck into it. So what you're looking for is the sump, this bit here and this bolt here. Now I've had the engine running. I like to warm the engine up. You've got to remember that everything will be hot. So everything that you touch is going to be hot. The reason I do this is so the oil will come out quicker. It's also been circulating through the engine and picking up the gunk and the gunge. That's all going to wash out, come down and come out through my oil. So let's do it. You'll need a tub. And I've got a large tub here. Now you can use a tray or something like that. Just remember, you're taking close on 10 litres of oil out. That means you need enough space to be able to fill up whatever you are going to hold your oil in. I'm going to crack the nut here. Okay, you can see the oil start to wick out. Now remember, when this oil comes out, it's going to be hot because you've had your engine running. It's a good idea to have a rag ready. You can see the oil starting to leak out. Now remember, this is going to be hot oil. So what I do is I put upward pressure on the nut. I have a rag ready to wipe my hands off. And by putting upward pressure on that nut, the thread will kind of seal itself while you unscrew and stop that oil coming out. It will get to the point you'll feel it'll drop off the last thread. Right there, and you pull your plug out and drain it. Now you could wear gloves while doing this. I choose not to. I just wipe my fingers on the rag. Now you're going to wait till all that oil drains out of the system. Make sure you give your bolt a good clean and put it somewhere safe, because you need to put this back in. Now that our oil is all drained out down the bottom, or nearly drained out, we're going to unscrew our oil filter, which is up here just under the intake manifold. Now remember, it's going to be hot as well. You can see I've written my date on here. I also do that on my fuel filters. Now, sometimes, if you're lucky, you can unscrew it with your hands, but I'm not that lucky today. As it was just a little too tight for my hand, I'm going to use this tool to help get it off. So just loosen it. Now make sure your bucket or catch tray is sitting below this oil filter, because it's possible that you're going to lose a bit of oil as you unscrew it. And it's still too tight. And there it goes, a little bit down into the bucket. Flip it up, hold it up the right way. I did lose a little bit down there into the tray, but that's all good. What you do want to make sure is that this rubber ring here around it, you can just see it, sort of. See if I can get it out. You want to make sure that that comes off with the filter and doesn't stay down on the fitting, because if you screw the double rings on, it will not seal and you will lose all your oil. Now, what you want to make sure, there's a rubber O-ring here. You want to make sure that this comes off and doesn't stay down on the... Try that again. You want to make sure this rubber O-ring comes off with the filter, doesn't stay down there on the fitting. If this O-ring stays down there and you screw the other filter on, it's going to leak, it's going to cause you problems. Make sure that there's no O-ring down there. Now I've got a rag, and what I'm going to do, it's lint-free rag, is just give the surface where my oil filter sits on a nice clean wipe, because we don't want any muck on it. There's a bit of dead oil in there. I'm just going to soak up with my rag. So what you can see here is it's nice and clean. I don't have the other O-ring stuck on it, so that's good to go with the new oil filter. So you can see I've just used a paint marker or a permanent marker, Sharpie, whatever you want to call it. I've written the kilometres and the date that I'm going to do the oil change. Now you need to peel this piece of plastic off, and you can see the O-ring there that I was talking about before. What you want to do is just run a smear of oil around that. There's a bit of paint on that, we'll make sure that's gone. So what I do is I just tip the bottle up side down, get a little bit, make sure that paint's not on my finger, a little bit of oil on your finger, just smear it around. That just aids it in coming off next time and sealing, which seems really odd, but a little bit of oil on it helps it to seal. Once that's on, we then screw the oil filter back down onto its housing. Now you don't need to crank it super tight. Feel where it locks up and then give it about a quarter turn more from where it locks up. You don't want it so that it's so loose that it's going to come off. We want it just firm so that it will stay there and you're not going to lose all your oil. My dates ended up upside down, but that doesn't matter. That's the luck of the draw. So what I'm going to do now is a little bit of a flush. If you wanted to fully flush it at this point, you would go under the car, put your bung back in, fill the engine up, turn it over, run the engine, and then drain that oil. But because the oil is fairly expensive, what I do is I just tip a little bit down the hole. I'll see if I can do this without spilling it. About that much, because I know that I've got spare oil. What that will do is that, and I'm putting that back on, that's going to run down, flush through the system and take any contaminants that are sitting out down in the bottom there that might be struggling to come out. So back down under the car, you can see that that oil that we tipped into the top is now coming through. It's bringing a bit more black gunk with it. So we may just repeat that again. As I said, I've got a little bit of spare oil, so I know that I can do this. We just pour a little bit more in and wait till it stops dripping, and when it starts to come out a little bit cleaner, we know that it's taken all of the gunk out with it. You can see we're just dripping oil now. It's fairly clean. I'm happy that we have it at a point where I'm ready to go. So give your bunghole a nice bit of a clean wipe, and then put your bung screw back in without dropping it down into your oil pot. Now you can see there's a little washer on there. Make sure you have the washer on. It helps it to seal. Now we want to do this up firm. You don't need to wail on the spanner. You want it firm so that it's not going to come undone. Give it a wipe. And there we go, we're ready to go back up the top and put some oil into the system. Now that we have our oil filter back on and our bung on down the bottom, which is very important, we can fill up our engine with oil. Now I know that it's going to take at least 9.1 litres, so this is a 7 litre container, so I can pretty much empty this whole one in. Now I'm using Penrite oil. That's because I like Penrite oil. There's other oils that you can use, that's your choice, but I really prefer the Penrite oil. So we fill it up. What I am going to do is I'm going to just check and see where I'm at with my dipstick. You can see the mark on it. Okay, so we're just at the bottom there now, remembering that some of that's still going to filter down. Now, if you're using one of these, it's good to have a funnel. I have lost my funnel, so I need to buy a new one. So today, I'm going to see how skilled I could be. Not very. Now you can see it's coming up on the dipstick there. We're almost at the full level. So a little bit more in. Now you need to remember that at this point, if it's a little bit over full, that's okay, because we don't have any oil in our oil filter. So we need to start the car and pump it into the oil filter. So I'm going to put the cap on there for now. I put the cap on because I don't want muck getting down there. Give that a wipe. Now give it a few seconds just to get to the right levels. You can see there we are just slightly over full. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give the engine a turnover and pump the oil up through the filter, and we'll then check the height again. Now I've run the engine for a couple of minutes just to get the oil to circulate, and you can see on the dipstick that it's gone down. So we're going to need to top it up a little bit and check it again. So we'll top it up, but remember, when you check the oil on your car just after it's been running, it's going to give you a slightly different reading to when it has been sitting there for a while. This is because the oil will sit all up around the engine and slowly drain down into your engine. So it's best to check your oil when the engine is cold. Doesn't mean don't check it when it's hot. You should check it daily or weekly, every time you drive it, or especially if you're on a trip, just give it a check and see how that's looking. Okay, so I've had a few more minutes to sit. Okay, you can see there that we're now up to the full level. So I'm going to leave it sit overnight, and then I'm going to check it again in the morning just to make sure that it is correct and done before I drive off. So the last thing I like to do is, yes, I did spill a bit of oil. There's a bit of oil, so just going to give it a bit of a spray. The engine's cooled down now. Give it a bit of a spray. I'll come back and give that a wash with a hose, and it'll be all nice and clean. Now remember, give it a check in the morning. Make sure that it's full and you haven't overfilled it or something like that. Guys, keep these good old 80 series Land Cruisers running and get out there 4-wheel driving.